there's different models where you can bring in serviceability. And because build costs have elevated 30-40% in the last few years since we acquired my current project, I'm having to completely pivot the business model now. And where I'm looking is our biggest cost, is because I can't bring the build cost down. It's going to take a few years, and I can't just sit on my thumbs and have no revenue for a few years because build costs are too high, waiting for them to come down. So we go to the other largest cost in our project, which is finance, because in these large luxury, projects, you could be looking at 1.5 million in interest just on the land, depending on how long you need to hold it for. And your negotiation strategy on the land price becomes a push and pull, give, take with the vendor on how much settlement time can you give me to offset cost in interest so that I can give you the highest possible price to appease them, right? Because there's a direct relationship, and vendors don't typically understand that, and they just want short settlement and the highest price. And so those can be difficult and challenging. But what I'm finding is now we're going to pivot, and I'm now beginning a new research phase of the business to bringing on potentially and changing funding models. I still want to use the private space. My current lender has been incredible. I'm not going to say who they are here, but if anyone wants to contact me and ask further questions, I'm happy to recommend them. My experience has been exemplary, but it's a higher cost model, and he knows that. And he's actually and they're actually sourcing a different type of funding to reduce costs for people, because they can see the same thing I'm seeing, which is build costs are escalating. And I really want to build a future partnership with these guys, but it'll be a case by case deal. So the pivot that we're looking to make is potentially bringing on a serviceability partner who has that higher net income, who could service $5 to $8 million loans. And what that does, folks, is that lowers your cost base in the finance. So in private finance with a lot of cash, you can capitalize all your fees. There's not a lot of upfront costs to you as the borrower, because all those fees get capitalized into the loan and paid out at settlement. But there is a chunk of money that you need to, outside of all the cash you spend on the development, there's a chunk of money that you need to deposit into their trust account to put up front as security. And then I think what they do, I'm just guessing here, because they say it's capitalized to the end, and then the line fees are billed monthly. But at the end of the day, like in our case, we put up about $1 million, and surely he's paying out his investors some upfront costs on their returns, to keep them happy to go into an 18-month deal with some of that money, or he's deploying it elsewhere and going from there. That's his business. But at the end of the day, the private space allows you to capitalize, so you don't need to pay upfront fees. They capitalize all that into the loan. Just like lenders' mortgage insurance when you're buying your PPR, some lenders will capitalize that, so you don't have to shell out like 20 grand on top of stamp duty or something for a $1 million purchase. So
just one more thing to add for the users and listeners. I think, of course, from a private equity perspective, it would make a lot more sense for them to capitalize, right? Because there is no serviceability in there. So ultimately, they're giving you the money. And if they give you more, which they want it coming back to them, they might as well not give it to you in the first place, right? And so naturally, their thinking is that, well, this is the interest that is going to come back to us anyway. Why give it to them in the first place? We'll just hold it and call it capitalization, right? And so banks do it quite safely and securely because there is a lot more collateral, there is a lot more serviceability. They'll check your income, they'll check 10,000 different things to capitalize that income. But from a serviceability partner perspective, of course, that's the risk that they're managing by keeping that money. Yes, you're right in saying that, they might be earning returns elsewhere, or, providing returns to their own investors as well, because ultimately these are managed funds. So, really good point.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're avoiding serviceability, you're avoiding income testing. So the way we structure things is like I would take directorship and look at things so that there's only one captain of the ship. When you go to take loans and you have 8 captains and 8 directors, it really complicates the loan process. There's a lot of serviceability, or like they'll want to delve into every person. So we've created a structure of a company that bought the land, and then a company that houses the investors. So we didn't have, even though there was a unit trust here, we didn't have the investors investing directly into that unit trust. We had another layer of protection for them down in a separate company where we issued the shares and everything else. And then there was only a single shareholder in the company that owned the land, which was the shareholding company. So, and they just owned the units. And then it all fragmented from there.